remember a time where boys would be boys was a saying, and like boys would be boys meant like, you know, you gotta throw mud at each other, and then you might each other up every once in a while, you know, because you got angry. But you're gonna be boys, and you're gonna do boy shit, and you'll get over it, and eventually you're just gonna be great friends. That's what boys will be boys used to mean. Now boys will be boys means two pussies are gonna come together and start throwing jabs on an online social media platform like women judging their OnlyFans, so that they can feel better about themselves because their childlike egos have exploded to such a point that the guy from Up can't get high enough to fly over those motherfuckers. That's where we are. So it's the weekend, and as many of you know, I get sick of dealing with stupid people all week, so we're going to do a little weekend video with someone smart. It's Asmund Gold. We're going to be talking about Elon Musk and Donald Trump and their stupid feud, and we're going to figure out how he feels about it, and then we're going to tell you how I feel about it. And by we, I mean myself and the other person that lives in my head.
Musk as his first buddy. So why has the billionaire made unsubstantiated claims that the US president appears in files relating to pedophile Jeffrey Epstein? There's been a lot going on in the past hour, and we've approached the White House for comment. Let's just try to start from the beginning.
I like how she said, pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Pedophile. But yeah, it seems as if what happened was after their little breakup, Musk was like, I need to drop the nuke. And he said that Donald Trump was in the Epstein files, and that's why Donald Trump hasn't released them. That's a crazy allegation. That is absolutely nuts. I don't know if you know how crazy it is, but that's a crazy allegation. Off the rip. Just off the rip. That's what we're dealing with.
This is what Donald Trump said in the Oval Office this afternoon. Have a listen.
He knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody. And he never had a problem until right after he left. And
okay, and we have to, that's a point that we have to make sure to understand here. He never had a problem with the bill until right after he left. So did Elon actually have a problem and just feel like he couldn't say anything too much because he didn't want to jeopardize the issues that he was dealing with, or he didn't want to jeopardize the ability to handle the issues he was dealing with, rather? Or did he actually not have a problem with it, and then once he figured out that his 130 days wasn't going to be extended, he got offended and said, oh, you're gonna give me the key to the White House and all this stuff? Yeah, great, but you should have extended what I did. You should have gave me a grandiose party. Was it ego playing a part? And then he ended up saying, hey, this bill is stupid. We don't know yet. We don't, but we will find out.
you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily. It's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon.
The fact that he said, I'm sure that will be next, before Elon even said the thing about him being related to the Epstein files, was pretty nuts that he called it, because you got to remember, Donald Trump's been around the game for a long time. He knows first what's going to happen is it's a little bit of, let's jab and poke at something you might have done. Let's jab and poke at something you might believe in. And then second, what comes is the personal attacks. That's usually how someone tries to take you down when they feel deeply offended.
That was Donald Trump this afternoon. Let's bring in our US correspondent, Mark Stone. I mean, Mark, these statements, these tweets, or, on Truth Social and X, have just been quite something in the last hour or so.
Oh, yeah, of course
this
they have.
is utterly extraordinary. The wheels have firmly come off this relationship. We've all been wondering when it would happen, but I don't think anyone expected it to spiral quite so quickly. I
actually, when I thought that there was going to be a Trump and Elon crash out, I never thought that they would bring up the Epstein files. That is
That's
a
nuts.
fucking nuclear weapon.
Yeah, I agree with what he's saying there. That is nuts. The fact that it wasn't Trump that brought up the Epstein files. It was, you got to make sure to let people know that it was Elon that did that. However, yeah, I think that was nuts, man. That was a bold move, Cotton. And I don't know that Elon is mentally aware of what that can bring to the table, or the type of consequences that can come from some slandering information like that, or slandering words like that. I think that Elon is talking out of emotion, and I think that because Trump is cool with Elon's family and his children, he's not going to rebut with anything that is damaging, so to speak. We all know that Elon likes to party, he likes his drugs and things of that nature, so maybe this is after a K-hole, and E's just coming back from a K-hole like, hey, yo, listen, I feel like shit, and some stuff is going on, and I'm gonna talk because I just had an existential crisis, and I left my body, and I came back, and I realized the universe is bigger than I thought. Like, we don't know what's going on. You shouldn't really bring up the Epstein files. These are some of the most damaging files you can think of. That is one of the most damaging allegations that a person can possibly make. That's worse than most of the things on the planet. We look at that like it's sacrilegious, it's disgusting, it's deplorable, it's Sodom and Gomorrah. We don't want to go anywhere near that. So for him to bring that up is almost like invoking Satan himself. So it's a little strange that he brought that up.
Try and break it down for you. So it was last week on Friday that the two appeared with a very fond farewell, so it seemed, in the Oval Office. Elon Musk had come to the end of his 130 days serving in the White House, and he was saying goodbye. It all looked pretty good. But as soon as he left office, he started to complain about Donald Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill. This is a spending bill that Donald Trump is trying to push through Congress.
Why would you start complaining the minute that you leave, and the minute that you receive the key to the White House, the minute that you realize that this 130 days is really not getting extended, then you decide to say something? So I think this truly has to do something with ego. Maybe his ego is extremely damaged, or maybe it was some sort of ego death trip for him, realizing that, yeah, there are people who care about you, but not as much as you think, He is this influential guy. He's one of the most important, if not the most important person in human history. But still, not everyone has to care about that. Or not everyone has the perception that he's that important. You know what I'm saying? So, that must have been some sort of ego trip. And it must have really damaged his ego enough for him to accuse Trump of being in the Epstein files. That's a wild accusation.
It would, says Elon Musk, raise the government and the country's debt massively. And so he started spouting off about that bill on social media. The first opportunity we got to question Donald Trump on his views of what his old pal Elon Musk was now saying about his spending bill was today, when Trump was in the Oval Office with the German Chancellor. You heard there what Trump said about Elon Musk. To which Elon Musk first replied online on Twitter, of course. He said, whatever, keep the EV solar incentive cuts in the bill, even though no oil and gas...
Somebody says Trump hid the Epstein files at Mar-a-Lago. That's why he refused to give the files back, because...
You can see a marked difference between how Elon was acting here, when he's showing Trump, the view and explaining things to him, and when he was in the White House receiving the key to the White House. It's almost like he was extremely uncomfortable with the situation. Now, I don't know why he would be extremely uncomfortable with the situation, but he was. And he was moving a lot. His body language was off. He had an anxious, defensive, almost body language. His posture was kind of weak. He wasn't standing up straight like he usually does, like he's doing here even. So I don't understand what was happening with Elon, but this could have been off of drugs, man. Like he had a black eye. Who knows? He maybe got into a little bar fight. Maybe he had a little wild night with some drugs and some chicks. Who knows, man? We don't know. But it's weird. Like the sequence of events is really telling. It is something that you have to do a deep dive on. You can't just make baseless assumptions like people are doing in Asmongold's chat right now. It's insane. And shout out to Asmongold for calling that shit out.
They incriminate him personally. Elon will expose this further very soon. Okay. Then I want to see it. That sounds great. That's a great guess. Let's see it.
Subsidies are touched. And then he says, even in the entire history of civilization, there's never been legislation that's both big and beautiful. Everyone knows it. Then the wheels began to come off because Musk carried on by saying, without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. So it was looking like the wheels were coming off.
Yeah, I mean, that really, like, that's like saying something like that, that's definitely an aggro dialogue, 100% it is.
Thing is, A lot of the stuff between him and Elon has nothing to do with MAGA. It has to do with two billionaire children with their egos who are in a position of power that should have never happened ever in history. And it happened. And, you know, I liked it. You know what I mean? I'm not against it. And I think Elon did a lot for Doge, which he might feel shortchanged. And I get that feeling. There's recently, these puppies were born that my brother had, and they were in his place. And I decided that I had to take care of them because my brother wasn't taking care of them. He barely takes care of his own dogs, right? So I had to take care of them. And I took care of these puppies and raised them with my fiance for 8 weeks, right? 8 weeks. And then after the 8 weeks were up, I was like, well, you got to wash them up. You know, we got to see how they're doing, blah, blah, blah. Maybe take them to the vet. I go and I see my brother and he's like, oh, yeah, by the way, the dogs are getting out of here today. Like, what are you talking about? We didn't discuss the money I paid for their food, the money I paid for their lodgings, like the cages and stuff. The fact that I shared my dog's food with them on occasion, more than on occasion, like all the time. And I had the mom down here waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're just going to tell me that now it's time to get rid of them without even checking in with me or communicating with me? That's crazy to me. So you feel underappreciated, right? And that feeling of unappreciation also translates into a feeling of, what is the word I'm looking for here? The feeling of betrayal that comes from that is so intense that you feel as if someone just destroyed you, that you can't trust them anymore, that they took everything that you were worth and destroyed it, or turned it against you, or broke it in half, or dismissed it, or minimized it. And then you want to go on a warpath, right? Because I didn't go on a warpath, obviously. You know, I held my stature, my frame, and then I took it the route of cooling down by taking a walk with my dog and then coming back and having a conversation with everyone to get shit moving properly, right? To get shit settled like it should be. And my fiance had a conversation about this thing for maybe like 30 minutes. So he watered it down. This is what happens when you don't water it down, and when the ego is involved. And when the ego is involved at such a high level that there's a chance that it can explode. And it in fact did explode, and Elon tried to drop a nuclear bomb on Trump, figuratively speaking, in spite of his family connections and all that stuff. But you don't see the family and stuff coming out like that, the Trump family, anything. You don't see Trump going super duper hard with ad hominem attacks. And that's because he understands that Elon is something of a man-child, and he's just going to be something of a man-child himself, but in a different way, and wield political power to hurt Elon, or bluffing to hurt Elon, saying, hey, if we would have cut your shit, we should have cut your shit. I don't know why Biden didn't cut your shit. Like, that hurts. You know what I mean? That hurts. It's even more betrayal after he was actively using the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon, I mean, to make cuts to things that didn't need to be done. You know what I mean? So, I mean, God, that is the... Damn, that comes full circle hard. That comes full circle hard, man. We got Trump and Elon are now in a feud. This is causing a civil war in the MAGA camp, or on the right in general. It's causing a civil war. There was already a civil war because people didn't like that Elon was there, and now it's getting worse because they split. So now people are confused all over the place. It's a weird situation. Elon Musk then goes and has a fit after Donald Trump gives him the key to the White House, and Elon Musk says, hey, guess what? You are in the Epstein files, and that's why you won't release them. Have a nice day with that, everyone. Donald Trump responds, well, I'm not going to attack you personally or do any ad hominem attacks. So what I will do is say that your EV cuts would save the country. My God. This is becoming a spectacle. I remember a time where boys would be boys was a saying, and like, boys would be boys meant like, you know, you throw mud at each other, and you might fuck each other up every once in a while, you know, because you got angry. But you're going to be boys, and you're going to do boy shit, and you'll get over it. And eventually, you're just going to be great friends. That's what boys will be boys used to mean. Now, boys will be boys means two pussies are going to come together and start throwing jabs on an online social media platform like fucking women judging their OnlyFans. so that they can feel better about themselves, because their childlike egos have exploded to such a point that the guy from Up can't get high enough to fly over those motherfuckers. That's where we are. So we're going to continue to cover this over time. Asmongold made a dope video. Shout out to him. And I will speak to you later with more shit that I really shouldn't care about, but I have to.